Hello, I'm Mike Parrish, Agriculture Extension Agent in Dinwiddie County, and I'm for the soil because it's the foundation to everything in agriculture.
Hey everybody, Jeff Ishii here with another episode of For the Soil, a Conversation. My co-host will join us in just a few moments, but before we get to the podcast today, every once in a while it's just important to stop and say thank you to some very special organizations that support not only this podcast, but this whole initiative to improve soil health. So we're going to stop and say thank you to Virginia Cooperative Extension, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Virginia State University, Virginia Tech College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, also the Virginia Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts, Southern SARES, which is Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education, the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation, Virginia Farm Bureau, Piedmont Environmental Council, Sustainable Chesapeake Bay Foundation, and many others. Thank you so much for supporting this initiative to improve soil health. If you'd like to see a full list of all the partners of the Virginia Soil Health Coalition, just go to the website forthesoil.org and then just click on About, and you will see all partners of the Virginia Soil Health Coalition. One quick note, forthesoil.org. Do not click on forthesoil.com. That is not us. That is a private company, a private organization, totally unrelated to For the Soil, a Conversation. So make sure you put in forthesoil.org. Now to this week's episode. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of For the Soil, a Conversation. I'm Jeff Ishii with On the Farm Radio. My co-host, Dr. Eric Benfelt with Virginia Cooperative Extension Community Viability, is with us. Mary Sketch Bryant, our other co-host, she is with the Virginia Soil Health Coalition. Mary is taking a well-deserved week off this week, and she'll be back with us very soon. Dr. Benfelt, we do have a special guest this week. Her name is Rebekah Slabach. She is with Virginia Cooperative Extension.
Rebekah is an extension agent for agriculture and natural resources in Halifax County and has been with Extension for 8 years. And so we're pleased to have a conversation about soil health and what that looks like in her region. And Rebekah, we were talking a little bit at the end of last episode about the importance of culture, history, and mindset. If you wouldn't mind speaking to that.
Yeah, so if you don't realize or not, the word culture is part of the word agriculture. And so culture is part of those mindsets of why we think the way we do, why we feel the way we do, what decisions we make, how we live our life. And so there's different layers of that in agriculture. When I work with producers and asking them questions and learning about their operation and encouraging them in maybe an adaptation of something new, sometimes I run into roadblocks of, well, this is how my daddy did it. This is how my granddaddy did it. They didn't soil test, or they did this and it was just fine. And so in my conversation with producers, I try very respectfully not to belittle them, but also to help them see the bigger purpose and bigger picture and say, yes, this may be good or okay, but you can be even better and you can be even more efficient and you can be an even deeper conservationist with more long-term benefits. And so, yes, that is a struggle. I think there's an optimism with the younger generation, with myself, that maybe has had more opportunities with going to college or internships or travel or living somewhere else where they were born and raised, or other relationships with people with other parts of agriculture that can give them that perspective. So there's a balance of knowing why you do what you do, but also knowing the reason behind it. The why is more important than the what. But that has been a challenge with agriculture as we look at new things, whether it's cover crops or a new way to take care of our soil health. Sometimes that can be a roadblock of, it's something new, it's something different than some people have done before. And so different seems extra. It can also seem unnecessary. But again, we focus on what the producer's goals are, and we want them to be the most purposeful and productive producer that they can be.
We're talking today with Rebekah Slabach with Virginia Cooperative Extension. And Rebekah, I'd love to hear your comments on soil health with a specific crop, and that is tobacco. Of course, where you are located on the south side of Virginia, there's a lot of tobacco grown, and we have not talked about that crop in this podcast before, but I have learned that Virginia is one of the leading exporters, of course, in the nation with regular tobacco, but also in certified organic tobacco. A lot of people might not realize that, but can you talk a little bit about soil health with a very intensive crop such as tobacco?
Yeah, so tobacco is a very premium crop with the amount of value that producers get off of the crop, but it also is, because of that reason, also very intensive on the soil. So there's a lot of tillage involved. There's a lot of hand labor with it. There's a lot of equipment that's used with either harvesting it or planting it. So because it's very intensive, the top, few inches of soil are the most important soil. And so when soil is not covered, when it doesn't have a chance to, rest and recharge in between, planting of another crop, when it's not replenished with its nutrients, with lime or fertilizer, it just ends up being more and more depleted. And so over time, we've seen that with tobacco, just because it is so heavy intensive. And if producers have not been purposeful with the rest and soil health and replenishing that soil fertility, we've seen a lot of erosion. And then when we've had droughts and we've had hurricanes, when producers are done with tobacco and plant the next thing, we've just seen it slowly erode. I've seen that in the color and the texture of soil. It's very dried out. So that's been a generational thing with tobacco heritage in our area. And even though there's less producers growing tobacco, again, even if you're a new producer and you're inheriting or buying land, if there's been tobacco on in the past, that's usually a part of the conversation I have with people, because they see the effects, they know it, and they just know that you inherit the history and heritage and opportunities and challenges with the farmland that you've had.
And Rebekah, one of the key principles that we've been focusing on, and our partners as well, is the idea of minimizing soil disturbance. And if you could talk about tillage, we have conservation tillage, reduced tillage, no-till, and trying to get people, if they have to till, to till as gently as possible. And what are you working at there?
Yeah, so with soil disturbance, we tell producers that, we want the soil to be healthy and have pores and have spaces for the soil to breathe, for water to infiltrate. Anytime there's rainfall, we want that rain going down the soil, down the water table, so it's a reservoir. We want there to be biological activity. We want there to be living organisms there, helping to break down soil, helping to increase the organic matter. And so when there's high tillage crops, it's just slowly going to be compacting soil. It's going to be slowly killing those living organisms like worms and other biological things, and it's going to close pores. There's going to be less opportunity for air and water to flow in your soil. And so there's many impacts of that. But again, tillage mainly is those first few inches of the soil, which is also what's the most important parts of the soil too. And so again, then with tillage, we want to make sure our soil is covered also, most importantly. And so we've seen the impacts of high tillage, and thankfully there's been, much research and education and outreach, and producers are seeing the effects of high tillage and are, adapting to some less intensive practices.
Do you see a lot of farmers in Halifax County using no-till techniques? And also there's another technique that I've just recently become aware of called strip tillage. Do you see farmers in your region using that method?
Yes, we've had some strip tilling. We've seen more of it the last few years. Part of it depends on what crops people have and what their land or equipment situation is, but a lot more no-till, less intensive tillage. So that's slowly increased over time, and thankfully a lot of resources and research and educational events, and also producers seeing the differences for themselves too. Sometimes it takes time for them to see, but as more people are practicing no-till or see the benefits themselves or also of their neighbors or friends, that thankfully is becoming a bigger priority.
And Rebekah, you've also done some research and demonstration with cover crops. If you maybe walk us through from the importance of planting even a single species of cover crop to maybe experimenting or moving towards maybe 3 to 5, or I've heard some farmers plant 20 cover crop species in a mix. How are you working with producers there?
Yeah, so as Eric mentioned, one of the principles of, for the soil is to cover the soil. And so we want our soil covered as much as possible. And so that looks many different ways with cover crops. My main priority is to get producers to cover their soil with a single cover crop. And thankfully, I have a wonderful relationship with my soil and water and NRCS office. And so we work together with lining up cover crop funding for producers to help financially support that investment. But yes, we work with producers. There's different examples of cover crop mixes. Again, if a producer has a specific challenge like compaction or has more of a limited budget, maybe, I'll adjust or help them with recommendations on even a light mix versus no mix at all, or something that's more helps them meet their goals. But we want producers to cover their soil. It helps to reduce erosion. It helps to reduce that soil loss. It takes years and years and years and years to rebuild those top few inches of soil, and it's not worth it. It's not worth not covering your soil. I saw in 1 week what Hurricane Michael did to farms in my area, of just washing away good soil. It wasn't covered with the wind and rain, and it was gone. And it really affected, that year and the next year, and there's still ripple effects of that. And also cover crops are also helping to rebuild the soils. So we're planting cover crops after our main crop, maybe whether it was soybeans or corn or wheat or something. And so a cover crop is helping to rebuild that soil fertility, maybe rebuild some nutrients, helping to, again, replenish and restore that soil in the meantime before we're coming back next year, we're planting that new crop. And so there are many purposes of a cover crop. Done is better than perfect. Something is better than nothing are two themes that I share with producers. And so helping them to see that all it does is helps your soil, and it helps you. And thankfully there's some cost share funding and resources available to help producers make those decisions and make it more financially feasible for their farms too.
And Rebekah, as we talk about soil health, it sort of has certainly a present generation focus, but then also there's a future generation focus. I'd like to step back and maybe talk about your experience with Envirothon. I know through the years I've been asked to judge and help, particularly around soil quality and soil health. Can you speak to your experience there?
Yes, soil health was definitely a theme in Envirothon that they focused on. There's different stations within Envirothon, and there's also a special topic. And I remember 1 year it focused on flooding damage with riparian buffers, what conservation practices people could do, best management practices. So yes, Envirothon was a good experience of helping give me some of that technical knowledge and helping me get experiences of going on to farms and seeing good examples and not as good examples. But Envirothon is one of the best environmental youth education opportunities for youth. And again, those partnerships of, adults in agriculture, whether they are extension agents that are judges or coaches, or NRCS, Soil and Water, USDA folks, those people are mentors and guides and teachers. And I know I wouldn't be where I am today with the passion, knowledge, and skills if it hadn't been for those seeds that were planted in me before for those experiences. And so I'm very thankful. Our team was second in the state in the soils part of Envirothon. We made it that far, and we were very proud for our little tribe from Halifax County. So yes, and it takes a village, like Eric said, of people to organize those programs, and it takes time and effort. I realized later how much our local community and our ag agencies did compared to a lot of other friends in other counties, and I feel very blessed. It's something that takes work and effort, but it's always worth it. It pays off long term. Later, you'll see with the education, the perspective that youth have when it comes to worrying about conservation and soil health, and how soil health affects every type of agriculture. And we are having a growing world population, and we're having to feed more people with less land and less resources. And so helping students have that perspective and know that we have to take care of our natural resources and we have to make the most of our land and our water and our soil.
Once again, we're talking with Virginia Cooperative Extension agent Rebekah Slabach in Halifax County. And just about a minute or so remaining in this episode of For the Soil Conversation. And Rebekah, I'd love for you to spend that minute to tell us a little bit about some of the resources available. Perhaps there are some novice gardeners or growers or farmers that are listening and they have no idea where to go to learn more about soil health. Can you talk about that?
Yes, the first step, I'm biased. I always tell people, contact me, contact your local extension office, your extension agencies. We have resources within the extension. The For the Soil, so the Soil Health Coalition has been one of the resources I've used, and I've also referred to people with specifically soil health resources. There are podcasts available. There are SARE books available that I've, requested and have passed out to farmers, and I call it Merry Christmas. Free resources and books and stickers that help them remind them of those soil principles and help make sure that they're continuing their knowledge and going to events and being interested in learning more. And then also, just encouraging them to work with the resources in their community, whether it's their local USDA office or Soil and Water or NRCS. Helping them be connected with the resources in their community. It looks different for every area, but helping them know who those resources are and those people so that they can have that team behind them to help them reach their goals.
Well, thank you for everything that you do, and we just want to say we appreciate you joining us for this episode of For the Soil, a Conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Dr. Benfeld, we'll catch you in the next one.
Yes, thank you so much, Rebekah and Jeff.
For the Soil, a Conversation is made possible with funding support from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and the Agua Fund. Other partners include the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, Virginia Cooperative Extension, Virginia State University, Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation, and partners of the Virginia Soil Health Coalition. Views expressed on this podcast are those of each individual guest. To download a copy of this or any other episode, visit the website forthesoil.org. If you have a specific question about soil health, call your local extension office, your local USDA service center, or a Soil and Water Conservation District office. Music used during today's program was provided courtesy of the Flip Charts, all rights reserved. For the Soil, a Conversation is produced by On the Farm Radio in collaboration with Virginia Tech. I'm your host, Jeff Ishii.